Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that bell!
Imagine living in a world where people believe the sun was a god. Not a metaphor, not poetic symbolism, an actual divine being blazing across the heavens. Now imagine standing up in that world and saying, no.
No.
The sun is a massive burning stone. That single sentence could get you exiled, imprisoned, or killed. And yet one philosopher said it anyway. His name was Anaxagoras, one of the boldest thinkers of the ancient world, the man who tried to explain the universe without mythology, without superstition, and without appealing to the whims of the gods. But Anaxagoras didn't stop there. He introduced one of the strangest and most influential ideas in the history of philosophy, that the universe is governed by mind. Not human mind, not emotion, not personality, but a cosmic intelligence, a rational ordering force he called Nous. In doing so, he helped shape the future of science, metaphysics, astronomy, and philosophy itself. This is the story of the philosopher who changed the way humanity looked at the cosmos. To understand why Anaxagoras mattered, we must first understand the intellectual world he entered. Before him, the early Greek philosophers, the pre-Socratics, were trying to answer a question. What is reality actually made of? Not mythologically, not religiously, but rationally. Earlier thinkers had proposed different answers. Thales said everything came from water. Anaximander proposed the infinite apeiron. Heraclitus believed reality was in a constant change and flux. Parmenides argued change itself was impossible. Empedocles proposed the four elements. Then came Anaxagoras, around 5th century BCE, born in the Greek city of Clazomenae in Asia Minor, which is now modern Turkey. But unlike many early philosophers, Anaxagoras would eventually move to the intellectual powerhouse of the Greek world, Athens. Because Athens was becoming the culture and political center of Greece, a city exploring with art, democracy, drama, science, and philosophical debate, this was the age of Pericles. And Anaxagoras became closely associated with him. That connection would make him influential, but would also make him dangerous. Like many philosophers before him, Anaxagoras faced a major problem. How can things change? This sounds simple, but it was a philosophical nightmare after Parmenides. Parmenides had argued something devastating. Nothing comes from nothing. And if that's true, then genuine creation is impossible. You can't get existence from non-existence, which means nothing truly begins, nothing truly disappears, change itself becomes questionable. This created a crisis in Greek philosophy, because obviously things seem to change. Trees grow, animals die, food becomes flesh, wood burns to ash. So what's happening? Anaxagoras came up with an extraordinary solution. Anaxagoras argued that nothing is ever truly created or destroyed. Instead, everything is made from tiny portions of everything else. This is one of the strangest ideas in ancient philosophy. According to Anaxagoras, bread contains tiny portions of bone, flesh, hair, blood, and everything else. When you eat bread, the corresponding particles inside you are separated and organized into body parts. Nothing new is created, the ingredients were already there. In other words, reality is an infinite mixture. Every object contains portions of every possible substance. The difference between things is simply which ingredients dominate. For example, gold appears gold because gold particles dominate. Wood appears wood because wood particles dominate. Flesh appears flesh because flesh particles dominate. But hidden inside each thing are traces of everything else. This theory is sometimes called the doctrine of everything in everything. And honestly, it sounds a little bizarre. But Anaxagoras was trying to solve a legitimate philosophical problem. How can something become something else without creation from nothing? His answer was, it already contained it. Transformation is merely a rearrangement. In some ways, this anticipates later scientific thinking. Matter changes form rather than emerging from absolute nothingness. But Anaxagoras now faced another problem. If everything is mixed together, what caused order to emerge? Why isn't the universe just one giant chaotic soup? And here we reach his most famous idea, nous, Greek for mind, intelligence, reason. Anaxagoras said the universe was originally a motionless mixture where everything was blended together. Then it initiated motion. This cosmic mind began a great rotational movement that separated and organized reality. Hot from cold, dense from light, stars from earth, life from matter. It's one of the first major moments in Western philosophy where intelligence becomes a principle of cosmic order. because earlier philosophers mostly relied on mechanical explanations, elements colliding, opposing forces, natural necessity, but Anaxagoras introduced rational ordering intelligence. Not mythological gods throwing lightning bolts, not Zeus making arbitrary decisions, a rational organizing principle, and later philosophers were stunned by this, especially Socrates. In Phaedo, Socrates says he was initially thrilled when he heard Anaxagoras claimed mind governs the cosmos, because Socrates expected this would explain reality in terms of purpose and reason, but then he became disappointed, because Anaxagoras often fell back into physical explanations rather than fully exploring philosophical purpose. Still, the influence was enormous. Without Anaxagoras, later ideas about rational cosmic order might have never developed the same way. Unlike most philosophers of his era, he aggressively pursued natural explanations for celestial phenomena. This got him into serious trouble. Anaxagoras claimed the sun was a giant burning rock. The moon reflected sunlight. Eclipses had natural causes. Meteors were stones falling from space. These ideas are very normal today, but in ancient Greece, they were explosive. The sun was widely associated with divinity. To reduce it to physical matter sounded almost atheistic. But Anaxagoras was committed to rational explanation. He even reportedly explained a famous meteorite fall scientifically. And this matters historically because it pushed Greek thought away from mythological cosmology and towards natural philosophy, what we would eventually call science. He was one of the first thinkers to systematically argue the heavens obey natural laws, and that idea would eventually change civilization. Now we hit the political dimension. Anaxagoras was closely connected to Pericles, the powerful leader of Athens, and in Athens politics was vicious. Enemies of Pericles targeted those around him. Anaxagoras became vulnerable because his cosmology sounded impious. Eventually he was charged with irreligion, essentially not respecting the gods of the city. This is one of the great recurring tensions in ancient philosophy. What happens when rational inquiry threatens traditional belief? We later see the same conflict with Socrates. According to some accounts, Anaxagoras was imprisoned. Others say Pericles intervened and helped him escape execution. Eventually, Anaxagoras left Athens and settled in Lampsacus, and there, remarkably, he became deeply respected. The citizens reportedly honored him after his death and established annual celebrations in his memory, which is a fascinating irony. Athens condemned him, another city celebrated him. So why does he matter today? Because he sits at a crossroads between multiple worlds. Between myth and science, he helped transition human thought away from supernatural explanations of nature. Instead of the gods caused eclipses, he asked what physical mechanism caused the eclipse. That shift is civilization altering. Between matter and mind, Anaxagoras recognized that pure material chaos doesn't easily explain order, so he introduced mind as an organizing principle. This idea echoes throughout Western philosophy. Plato's rational cosmos, Aristotle's unmoved mover, Stoic logos, Neoplatonic intelligence, even some modern arguments about cosmic intelligibility. He had influences on Plato and Aristotle. Both Plato and Aristotle discuss Anaxagoras extensively. Aristotle especially admired him for introducing mind into philosophy. In fact, Aristotle basically says earlier philosophers spoke randomly, but Anaxagoras appeared like a sober man among drunks. Now here's the funny thing. Anaxagoras was both brilliant and deeply weird. The idea that everything contained portions of everything else sounds absurd to modern ears. But remember, he lacked atomic theory as we know it. He was trying to explain transformation rationally using the conceptual tools available to him, and in some odd way, his instinct wasn't entirely wrong. Modern chemistry does show that matter reorganizes rather than appearing from nothing. The atoms in your body once existed elsewhere. Stars, soil, plants, animals, all recycled matter. Carl Sagan's famous line, "We are made of star stuff," that's obviously not identical to Anaxagoras. But the intuition that reality is interconnected and continuously transformed? That's surprisingly resonant. Anaxagoras also represents an attempt to reconcile two earlier philosophical giants, Heraclitus and Parmenides. Anaxagoras essentially says fundamental substances never truly come into being or perish, but mixtures and arrangements change constantly. So change is both real and not real. This becomes a major philosophical strategy later used by atomists and others. Anaxagoras' greatest legacy may ultimately be mind. The notion that intelligent structures in reality become foundational in the Western tradition. And even today, people still debate versions of the same question. Why is the universe intelligible at all? Why do mathematical laws describe reality so effectively? Why does order exist instead of chaos? Anaxagoras answered, because mind initiated order. Now, whether you agree with him or not, that idea changed intellectual history forever. Anaxagoras lived at a turning point in human history. He looked at the heavens and refused to see mythology. He saw processes, mechanisms, structure, order. He helped more civilization towards scientific thinking while also preserving the philosophical mystery of intelligence itself. And that combination is what makes him so fascinating, because he stands between two worlds: the ancient religious cosmos and the rational universe that would eventually give rise to science. He lost his home for those ideas, but thousands of years later, we still talk about him, which may be the ultimate victory for a philosopher.